Yes, guys, what is going on? It's mattbyron.com here with our real estate blog. Today, we're interviewing my great friend Michael Caggiano from Section8Secrets.com. Michael Caggiano is a longtime friend of mine. He owns, I believe, 10 properties currently. And today we're going to talk about real estate investing versus the 401k. Caggiano, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Byron, thank you. I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to be back and happy to be talking about this again.
Yeah, so we did a podcast a couple weeks ago about the 401k versus real estate. And it sounds like you've had some feedback on that where people were questioning the numbers. And so, you and I were talking offline about the idea of coming back to this and using more current information, right?
Yeah, yeah. What was interesting is a couple people were just questioning the reality of them. And
Yeah.
in what's funny is we were going very conservative on the real estate side, and from my understanding, quite favoring 401k. So two of the people that reached out to me were kind of like, hey, they were pretty pro 401k and didn't quite, you could tell they didn't know about real estate because they're like, how in the heck could somebody get 7 mortgages? And so that was a kind of beginner type question that,
Yeah.
easy answer. But I understand too, because they don't have more than one. They have their house and that's it. And they're like, there's no
Now,
way.
the seven mortgage thing, I think Fannie Mae often offers up to 10. Is that correct?
They offer up to 10. And the interesting thing is what I realize is that many people, what they don't realize though, is the debt to income ratios and how that works and how when you rent it out, if you buy one property, it doesn't go against your debt to income ratio and you're renting it out. If you have
Right.
it out and you have a legitimate lease, which we're all about doing it the right way, and you absolutely
Yeah.
want a firm lease, and then it shows up on your tax returns after the following year. So that's how you get around that you prove that it is rented out. So your debt to income
Right.
is negated on that property in totality because they'll take 75% of rent. Typically, it is 75% of the rent. It's not 100% of the rent, but
Okay.
75% of the rent, at least in my case, covers my mortgage because I'm
Yeah.
making solid profits. Some of my
That's outstanding. Yeah.
over $1,000 a month. So if I'm charging say 2,000 on a property, my mortgage might only be 800 anyway. Then you add in some taxes, insurance, and upfits and things like that, and maybe I'm all in at 1,100 a month. But I
Yeah.
can only take 75% of 2,000. Well, I'm okay. I'm actually still above the cost. So therefore, my DTI doesn't go down; it actually increases and makes
And
me.
and let's just jump back for a second, Cash, because some of our viewers are probably new to real estate, and there are two quick things which I want to just dive into in more depth. The first is we're talking about your real estate income being shown in your tax return, and the reason that is important is because the mortgage verification process, where mortgage lenders want to verify your income, right?
Yeah, and I should state too that we're talking about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans because that's what you were mentioning about, you get
Right.
10. But yeah, if you're doing a DSCR loan, you're doing an alternative financing option, sub two, seller financing, you don't need to worry about any of that. That's silly.
That's
So it's
right.
so silly that somebody's going to call out and say, "Hey, there's no way you can get more than 2 mortgages, 3 mortgages. How are you getting 7, Mike? There's no way."
Yeah.
Thinking you have to make so much money that your DTI, and typically the threshold is like 38%. So they
And
don't.
again, for viewers who are newer to the show, who are new to real estate, DTI says your debt to income ratio, which is a ratio of your monthly debt obligations to your monthly income. And then DSCR is the debt service coverage ratio. That's also a hot new topic in real estate finance this past month. I believe around November 18th or something, a new program came out where you can buy an owner occupied investment property, a 4 unit property, with only 5% down, which is huge news, getting conventional financing on that. C-note, Kajia, do you want to dive more into the DSCR program?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The debt service coverage ratio is basically they want to see like just like banks want to see this anyway. They want to see like a 1.25 mortgage debt coverage ratio. So they want to see that you're covering your mortgage and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not too hard to do. In my model, in this example, that's how conservative we were. We were just covering it. And that,
Yeah.
going back to that, is what we did on the last video was basically broke even. I think I said your Aunt Sally, you're going to rent it out to your Aunt Sally just at.
Yeah.
And what we want to do today is break down what's reality now, though. And that was the interesting thing is not only can you get 7, you can get 10 conventional Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, but then also let's put in some real numbers. If you think I was
Yeah.
in some certain way. And then lastly, I want to mention too, I had another person reach out and say, I don't think you're accounting for the taxes on your surplus on the rent when I did a 3% or 4% FMR increase after year one. I
Yeah.
did account for the taxes though, and that was something that
Okay.
behind the scenes, but I have tax brackets in there, and then part of the formula itself accounts for that. Now it's one of those things you just kind of trust because the formula is super detailed. It's a very long formula, but I did confirm that, and we had I should highlight this too. We have a government CPA review this spreadsheet.
Come on, are you serious?
We absolutely did, yeah. So
That's great.
one of our the owners of Section 8 Secrets is that's what his mother has done for the government, is a government certified CPA. So she took a look at that and blessed it as well, or to
Wow.
some extent, and said,
I
yeah,
mean, overall, the theme here for today's video is that in our last video, we destroyed the 401k with real estate. We absolutely crushed it. And we were trying to be very conservative with those numbers. And the reality is, based on more current data, the numbers are even more favorable toward real estate, right? That's really the big picture
yeah,
finding here.
and I should say, I only so I had probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 people reach out. They liked the video.
Yeah,
It was fun to watch,
nice.
and just a good way to break some things down that you probably couldn't find before. Like I said, that's how this started too. I was hunting that down, trying to see a comparison, some sort of education on the comparison of the two. You could find them in separate delineations separately. You could look at these things and look at 401k and look at real estate investing, but a side by side, I just couldn't find.
Yeah,
But so I had plenty come back and say, like, man, Mike, I honestly think you're just similar to what you even mentioned on the video. I think you're being a little too conservative on the real estate side. And I was like, yeah, I know, I was purposely doing that. I'm not trying to just say, hey, I'm all about real estate, because I do want to preface this again. I participate in 401k. I just do it up to the max match of my company, because I think it's silly
yeah,
to do that at least. So if I'm contributing like $10,000 a year, at least my company is going to also do $10,000 a year. So I'm grateful for that they do that. But I'm not going to go any further than that, because I love real estate anyway. And I'm going to
yeah,
show today, and I want to get to this, a cash out option too. A realistic cash out
yeah.
option of your
Okay.
pay, and show the penalty, pay the tax consequences, and then
Yeah,
put it in real estate. And I'm going to put it in real estate of the deal that I'm going to show today. And I'm going to show the actual signed closing disclosure. So I want to, full disclosure to me, I want to show
yeah.
that this is real.
This is outstanding, Cash Out. Let's dive into it. I feel like we built up the suspense. I'm on the edge of my chair. I want to see this IRL case study of what's happening right now for you.
Awesome. All right, let me know. Can you see my screen?
I can see it. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so I'm going to put in a 3% property appreciation. That's a little conservative still, but let's just stick with that. I know I had received significantly more than that, but I'm going to stick with that number just because that's more of a nationwide number. My FMR, though, I'm not going to go super conservative. I'm going to go a little bit lower. Mine in Maine dropped, didn't go up as much as they typically would this year. That's just,
And then can you also please define all your acronyms before you use them? So FMR, what does that stand for, please?
yeah, so fair market rent rates deemed by the government, because in
Okay.
HUD housing, housing choice voucher housing, every year, actually, it's like every October, they recalculate these numbers and they come out. So I was
Yeah.
thinking in Maine, they stayed essentially flat for 2024. Here
Okay.
in Wake County, they
Yeah.
actually went up 11%.
That's crazy. 11% year over year.
Yeah, 11% year
That's
over year.
huge.
Now, I should
Wow.
also highlight, last year in Maine, they went up 16%. So I was
Wow.
anticipating them. Yeah, that's why I said on the previous video, my average over 17 years is 7.87%
Yeah.
appreciation over 17 years. But I don't want to
Wow.
put that in. I'm just going to put something more,
That's a huge number. 7 point what percent?
7.87% has
That's a
been my
huge number. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
nice. So it's above the national average inflation. So a lot of people say it's a good hedge against inflation, but real estate's even better than that.
Yeah.
In appreciation, if you buy in the right area, in
Yeah.
value appreciation and in rent appreciation, you could, beyond hedging it, you're going to beat inflation. So that's, yeah, but not to get hung up there. But yeah, so, and then my mortgage rate, despite what I had on the last video, I think I had 8%.
Yeah.
I received 6.99, and right now, full disclosure, like I said, I'm going to show that. This is my signed closing.
I'm curious, how do you get 6.99? I keep seeing 7.5 or 8 for a lot of quotes. Do you buy down the rate or anything, or no?
No, well, actually I did. So, like I said, I did buy down the rate by 1 point. So that cost me
Okay.
my loan size. I did 25% down. So you can see here, 1 point would cost me $1,492.50. So I did buy it
Yeah.
by 1 point. However, interesting enough, I did negotiate seller concessions. So
Nice.
purchase, he's essentially covering that for me. So I was okay.
Yeah.
And then you can see here also, it's been not everybody's going to get the same rates because not everybody is financially arranged in the same fashion. But I had pretty high FICO, a little above 800. So I think the threshold you want to be at is above 780, I believe, and you're going to get pretty much the best interest rate if just based.
Okay.
And then you want to look at your reserves. Then you want to look at
And
your
then also, Cash, I just want to stop for a second here and dive into points for a second. For people who don't know, who are watching this, points is where you can increase the size of your loan and reduce the interest rate. And in most cases, if you're planning to hold the loan for a long duration of time, say 10, 20, or 30 years, it may make sense. So points is just a way to you pay money up front, you increase the loan size, and your interest rate goes down, but your payment also goes down over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and then during 2022, they almost made for all investors doing conventional conforming Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac lending loans. It was required. Points were essentially required. These banks were saying, "Hey, they're required," because what they were concerned with was rates kept going up, and they knew most of these people knew they were going to go down eventually, and they were concerned. Everybody's just gonna, as soon as they start going down, they're going to refi. Well, by paying it doesn't quite make as quick of sense to go ahead and refi. So for me,
right,
a couple years, because I've already paid that difference in that cost and interest then by paying the points, but I still only pay 1 point. So I think if you're only at 1 or less, you could refi when rates drop by a point or more, I would say.
But yeah, no, this rate you have of 6.99% outstanding. It's fixed on 30, correct?
I love that you use the word outstanding, Byron, because it's all relative to perception, right?
Yeah.
If somebody saw this 2 years ago, they'd say, this guy's nuts.
That's so true. You're right.
It's so high. It's insane. What is he doing? This guy's an idiot, right? And now
Yeah,
you're
but
outstanding rate. I love the perception though. That's what it's about though, guys. That's why waiters wait and movers move. I'm moving on this. You move on this action. This rate looks high if you were looking at it 2 years ago. This rate is high for me. My average blended rate on my 8 other properties is, I want to say it was 3.7.
I mean, it seems low based on just a month ago seeing 8%, and also seems low in the big context of, you and I were in the mortgage business back in 2003, 4, 5. And back then, we were seeing 70% all the time. So
yeah, my first investment in purchase and primary resident FHA loan was 6.5%.
Yeah, we thought it was normal at the time.
Back in the 6s. I'm happy to see that though. I was like, because I was quoting myself when I was underwriting my deal at 8 and 8.5. And then it's down. I got really lucky. Christmas came kind of early for me on this, and I was like, okay, now it's down to 7. So all right,
Nice.
so a 30-year term. So I am doing 25% down. That's another factor though in investing.
Okay.
Typically, 25% is going to give you the lowest rate based on your down payment. Based on down payment, that variable, that bucket. If you fulfill that bucket and you fulfill your 780 FICO, you're doing good. Then you fulfill your reserves. Then you fulfill no defaults on.
And let's define reserves too, again, for people who are new to real estate. When you say reserves, what do you mean by that, please?
Yeah, so typically banks want to see that you have 4-month reserves on hand for any of your units.
Okay.
So you should have 4 months reserves available for any.
And then in your case here, are the mortgage companies asking that you have 4 months reserves on all of your properties? You've got like roughly 10 right now, I think, right? So are they saying,
yeah,
aggregate or no?
No. So if then not everybody. So that's what I was saying. Not everybody is treated the same because not everybody is equally set up financially. But if you have a certain FICO and you're putting a certain down, in this case, I want to say it still goes back to if you're above 780. You're putting 25% or down or more, they're not looking at reserves at that point.
Okay, gotcha.
Like I said, not everybody's created equal though, because somebody might not have a 780 and somebody might not be putting 25% down, and somebody might have a default on their mortgage on one of their. Suddenly, if you have a default, they're going to look at that heavier. They're going to want to see the reserves more than likely. They're going to want to see the reserves.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's beyond the down payment. The reserves are separate from down payment, and reserves aren't actually paid. Just for the listeners, that is just a reserve. The bank wants to make sure that their collateral is going to be safe, and you have reserves, right? You don't actually use those reserves though.
Right.
Yeah, and so 5% down. 5% expense ratio. Property taxes $2,000 there. and HOA and insurance annually is going to run me about $2,200. Closing costs 3%, and interest on cash 3%. But I was actually just showing you, Byron, and I can show the audience 5% right there, ready to go. Company called
That's crazy. This is a bank you're saying, right? An FDIC insured bank?
FDIC insured bank. Yep, and
Crazy.
yeah, brokerage account too that you could set up.
Wow.
But they're showing you right here. Yeah, this is, and I'm just showing this. I'm not advocating for it. You could do what you want. You could research this. Any listener, I'm not. I'm by no means marketing them, but
Yeah.
an option you can see right here, 5%. And they're showing you an example. If your balance is 25,000 and you have 5% APY, there's your interest earned in 1 month, $106.
Oh, nice.
Pretty cool. So I'm again being conservative here, but let's just stick with that because you're about to
Yeah.
see here. So over here, back to the 401k side, just to kind of get going on this. 100,000 salary, we're going to say hypothetically, you're hypothetically contributing 1,500 a month.
Okay.
An employer match of 2%. I'm doing 2%. The national average is like 2.6%. I'm doing it.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep this in reality. These numbers here are my actual deal, like I showed on my closing disclosure. So
Yeah.
in fact, let me show, I also have the rent here. So I did want to hit on that. Let me show you the rent, the FMR. I'm going to show
Okay.
what that is. So this unit is in Maine. And so you can look it up really quick. I'm going to mainehousing.org. I'm going to look at the most recent FMRs posted here. I'm not going to look at payment standards because I'm not going to include utilities. I don't like to include utilities. So I'm going to click on this. This is the FMR, fair market rent rates for a housing choice voucher, Section 8 tenant. And my unit is in the Portland zone. It's a 2-bedroom,
Okay.
and it's right there. So $1,946.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's why I put this in here. So, and now we'll go over here. So 100,000, 1,500, 2% employer match. The effective contribution, meaning you combine your contribution in the 2%, is the 1,667, and post-tax equivalent. That's an important number, as the previous video, because that's going to be so what that's saying is what is the after-tax value of that 1,500? It's 1,091. And in this comparison, going back to our first video, Byron, was if you got a new job, if we'll use somebody else here. We'll say Frank got a job and Mike also got a job at the same time at the same place.
Okay.
Same salary and everything. Frank decided immediately after reviewing the new hire orientation, and he received a couple paragraphs about 401k and very little research. Said,
Oh, yeah.
I'm in. I heard about this.
Yeah.
Let me start contributing essentially all my disposable income of 1,500, and let me go ahead and put it into 401k. And we're kind of making light of this, but what we talked about, guys, is that there's just not a whole lot of material and a whole lot of underwriting done when you're making such a big decision. And the irony of that is, when you're doing real estate investing on one measly deal that you might need $25,000, $30,000 for, you're going through everything. You're going to thick and thin to analyze this every which way possible, all sorts of ratios. You want to know cap rates, you want to know debt service ratios, you want to know debt to income ratios. You're looking at everything possible. And it's like, it's a deal. You're only doing like 20, 30, 40,000. But in 401k, we do very little. So Frank decided, yes, let me put 1,500 in. So that effective amount is 1,091. That matters because that's also going to be my bucket money, the money I need in a bucket in order to buy this property that I am buying on January 16th. I need my down payment and I need closing costs. So what does that amounts to? I need $55,720 in order to buy my first property in this hypothetical scenario with realistic numbers, real numbers that I'm actually experiencing right now currently. So that takes 52 months. So that means in this example, Frank has been going 52 months ahead of me. He gets a 52-month head start because he didn't need a bucket to contribute. He contributed day one, paycheck one. He contributed to his 401k. So he was reaping kind of what I like to call unrealized gains, though, right? 401k is unrealized until you actually retire. So that's what these numbers are. Over here, the full disclosure, I am 42 years of age. So you could put any number you want. Whenever you're going to retire, I could have put 10, and the numbers are going to change.
Okay.
Yep. I could put, so I'm putting 18. So in 18 years, technically, I could get to my locked up money in my 401k. And so I'm going to put 18 years here to compare apples to apples here. So let's take a quick look now and really get to the point of the call. I purchased it for 199,000. I showed that on the closing disclosure. My
Yeah.
down, all this is accurate. All that amounts to the 55,700. The payment, the numbers here are the realistic numbers. It took me 52 months to buy it. So let's go
Okay.
here. Let me zoom in over here. Let's go over this way and take a look at what these numbers look like though. So this is one property. Took me 52 months. And now you're looking at the future. You're looking 18 months or 18 years out.
Okay.
Is what one property will do for me in 18 months or 18 years. This property that I'm buying on January 16th and closing on will absolutely annihilate my 401k that I am contributing to. I mean, realistically, I'm actually contributing to it.
And now when you're saying, you've stated your monthly cash flow in retirement, is that your net income off the property, or is that the gross? Can you define that?
Yeah, no, that is, well, in real estate, you don't pay tax, right? So, I mean, you pay tax at the end of the year. So I'm going to be receiving this. This is after all costs associated with it, though. So,
After the debt service, we're saying the mortgage is paid off, the property tax are paid off, and in 18 years, you're expecting to be netting $2,800 per month off this property. Is that correct? Even if there's still mortgage on it for another 12 years? Am I hearing this right?
that's 100% right. Correct. So
That's crazy. That's crazy, Caggiano.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So let me make sure I highlight for everyone, because you're asking good questions. No, this is a 30-year term mortgage. The mortgage still exists. So this is the beautiful thing of compounding. So this is compounding on the real estate side, just like your 401k compounds. A lot of things.
Yeah.
Your interest compounds on your savings account, like I talked about and showed the 5%. So this is the value of compound real estate, though, because every passing year, I put in over here an FMR appreciation of 6%. So the difference between this and the video before that I did was this was 3% or 4%, and this was break even on the first year. But I'm saying, no, let's do realistic. Let's stop being realistic. Well, realistic is actually for me, as I've said, 7.87. But I want to go a little bit lower because but you know what? Let's just keep it there, though. I mean, this is realistic.
Yeah, I mean, let's use real numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So after 18 years, yeah, I mean, you have inflation itself. So that's going to drive the cost of renting higher. I'm also factoring in for costs that are going to go up over here. I factor in for, buying another property, appreciation itself, property appreciation itself. So yeah, all things considered, what we're looking at is one property can literally elicit me $4,000 after 18 years.
That's
so
crazy. Now, Caggiano, I'm also curious, if you don't mind, I'd like to see you change that 18 years to 35 years. And the reason being that I'd like to see what happens 5 years after the mortgage is paid off, what your monthly income is off that property.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just for a second here, I'd like to see you change
and I just
5 to 35.
Just to show that at 5 years, it's, you're already winning, but not by, right? You could see, making $473 in 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's still not, not bad. You want to see 35? Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Look at
yeah. What?
Yeah.
Are these numbers right? We're saying monthly cash flow in retirement is 23,000. Gosh. So the rent, am I reading this right?
Well, we might need to pause here.
Okay. Let's pause.
Pause here, Byron. Wait a minute.
All right.
Are you able to do that?
Yeah. Welcome back, guys. Matt Byron here from mattbyron.com. Caggiano and I took a break actually for 10 minutes here because we're kind of in shock. We were in shock because I asked him to change the years for retirement to 35, and we got a number, and we could not believe it. We literally could not believe it. And we just talked offline about that number, and it's real. It's accurate. Cag, you want to fill people in on what we did and what we're going to do now for our video?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Byron. It was kind of, we were both laughing. We're like, holy cow. We're trying to absorb the power, the rule of 72, the rules of compound interest, right? Like all this stuff. Well, what happened was this number, this FMR number, when we put in, because I had 7.87.
Yeah.
When you put that in 35 years, And the reason 35 years is significant was that's when the mortgage will fall off, because we give a
Right.
runway of 52 months. So we have to go beyond 4 years, beyond 48 months, because it's a 30-year term. So 35 years, it looks silly. Like, there's no way. What are we talking about here? Well, that's this number over here. So what we
And this
will,
is a real number, Cash. I mean, this is a real number that you're actually getting in real life for the past how many years we're talking?
it is 17 years. It is a real number.
17 years. That's insane. It's incredible.
Insane,
And it
right?
goes to show the huge difference between 4% versus 7.9%. It's very significant in compounding.
Yeah, it is. Now, what we talked about offline is we don't know how realistic it is nationwide. And one of the
Right.
things that I found was I got fortunate where I was in Maine, and I mean Old Orchard Beach. Old Orchard Beach got rezoned to Portland probably about 6 years ago. And when it got rezoned to Portland, wow, did that become lucrative for me, because that's a significantly higher town. So those are the listeners that don't understand that. That's in a different county. Portland is in Cumberland County, and Old Orchard Beach is actually in York County. However, because it's so close, the proximity there and the amount of people based on some sort of census data, I received a letter, and it was deemed that, hey, we're going to honor the Portland to Cumberland County rent rates, even for Old Orchard Beach. So that is why it sparked at the time, I only had 3 units. I've since acquired, 4 more. And yeah, so anyway, that's what that was, though. This is real. There's not a break in
Yeah.
this, and we got concerned. I'm like, wait, something might be off. I'm like, not off. That's the power of compound interest, though. That's what this is doing, because it's saying 7.9 every year for 35 years. Suddenly, okay, you started at 1946. Yeah, you're going to end above above 23,000, because that's a profit. So you still have costs that it's accounting for, and you're profiting. Your net take home is 23. We're like, wait,
it's
what?
absolutely crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's challenging too, Cash. I think you and I are faced with a dilemma at this very moment, because we're debating, you want to use real numbers from a real case study. You're doing that, but these numbers are so incredible. It's like, it's hard for people to relate to this, I think, right?
And I think my point that I'm saying is, when they rezoned, that caused that number, because I'm doing an average of 17 years. So when it rezoned, I'll be honest, it went up 40%, 38.
Yeah.
From 1 year to the next, my rent literally went up 38%.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's a big jump to skew in a 17-year, population that we're looking at. So not quite fair. So let's go back down to 4.5.
Okay.
What I'm going to say more conservatively, let's go back down to 4.5, even though I just said Wake County's in double digits this year, but that doesn't mean every year. So we're going to average it out and just say 4.5. So 4.5 in 35 years, you could see you would be profiting. Back to your question, though, after we corrected that, it's looking at $7,800 in net positive take-home cash flow, positive cash flow. Now, at the end of the year, yeah, you got to pay some taxes on that. Because in real estate, you're not paying taxes monthly, weekly, what have you. It's not like you're getting a paycheck. You're just getting this directly. And in Section 8, you get it directly wired from the government every single, the beginning of the second business day of every month. I get a lot of money coming in from the government, a lot for me, a lot to me. And that's how that works. So then at the end of the year, I got to hope that, my accountant, I have a CPA, they do taxes. There's a lot of write-offs. There's depreciation. There's interest write-off. There's expense write-offs on the property itself that you may have incurred, that then can get that number reduced down. But you do pay, at the end of the year, you're going to probably pay some taxes, definitely after 35 years of owning. But that's a good problem to have anyway. So yeah, in 35 years, you're still beating the 401k scenario. You're still beating Frank. So back to that question. So Frank's number is 6276. And keep in mind, Frank's number stays that number because they don't want him to outlive. Frank, the government says, hey, it's a 4% rule. Frank, don't outlive your money, please. We got a problem. So you can only get this. So that's your best year. And why do I mean your best year? That's his best year because inflation is still happening after, year 36. He still has inflation. 37. Yeah. There's inflation. Suddenly that new car, that, whatever he's at that point, he's buying a new walker or something. His new walker and the tennis ball gives you a little more money, on year 38 than they were on year 35 and so forth. But over here, this number keeps going up because it doesn't know when you're retired. Retirement doesn't matter. There's no 4% rule here. So that's going to keep going up. And what do I
And
mean?
if you can, just for a second here, please describe the 4% rule in detail to people who are new to finance and investing. What you're referring to there.
Yeah, the rule, and I mean, I'm not going to know it in detail, but I mean, essentially, what it's saying is that number has been proven to make it so you don't run out of money. So whatever balance you have in your 401k at that point,
Yeah.
just take the 4% out. You're not going to run out of money. In fact, it should kind of maintain almost, is my understanding. However, there are
Okay.
fees associated with it, so I do think it depletes, but very slowly. And it's been proven that if you just do 4%, you will not be running out of money at the end of your life. So they don't
Yeah.
run out of money. However, you may run out of money if you do a little bit more. So that's just some studies and data. So a lot of people know that 4% rule based on that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back though to me. So realistically, back to me, 18 years, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire well before that. But regardless, in this one deal, this real deal that I showed the numbers, I showed the closing.
Yeah.
This is realistic. This is realistically going to be what it looks like in 18 years for me on one lousy property, like one property I'm buying in 3 weeks. To just think that outperforms Frank putting 1,500 in a month. My money that I'm putting in stops at month 52. It stops. I'm no longer contributing to this fund when you think of it this way. I'm no longer contributing because Frank is paying, or not Frank, maybe it is Frank. My tenant is paying it plus the government. The government's probably paying on average too. I'll say on all my units the government pays me 79%. My tenants pay 21% of my rents, and the government pays me 79% of all rents over the course of 17 years. It's a pretty nice feeling. So in other words, it's guaranteed. At least 80% is guaranteed. However, none of my tenants in Section 8 have missed a month. None of them.
Wow.
Private market, I've had executive rentals. I've done 2 evictions. Both were non-Section 8 tenants I had done evictions for. And actually,
you've been doing Section 8 rentals for how many years now?
Yeah, since 2007 was my first Section 8 tenant, who's still my tenant in that same unit, by the way.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So Byron, that's this scenario here. So I wanted to show that and just show that this is a realistic deal. And it's crazy to think one property outperforms Frank putting 1,500 in a month. And you could look at this and say, well, okay, realistic, let's put it 10 years. What happens in 10 years? Oh, I'm still ahead in 10 years. Keep in mind, he had almost a 5-year, he had a 4.5 year, a 4-year, 4-month head start. I didn't.
This is huge information, Kajan. I feel like there's this gigantic misconception out there for people investing that if they play the stock market for 20 or 30 years, that they're going to do great for retirement. And what you're showing very quickly here, very succinctly, is that just buying one rental property can set somebody up significantly better than investing in a 401k. And I think that the reason for that is there's probably a lot of money spent on advertising for these investment companies, these brokerage houses, but there isn't a lot of money making videos like this. Like that's the advertising difference.
Yeah. And let me show something here while you were talking. I was thinking about this too. It's somewhere around year 12. It's year 12 because it's about 8 years for me to get my money back. So I make my money back. That's a really cool thing, Matt, as well in real estate. So I'll make my money back after 8 years. So it looks like right there. Year 8. So this is year 12 in retirement because what I'm looking for real estate, I've owned that property for 8 years though. I've owned that property for 8 years. Frank
okay.
Started, but I was putting my money into a bucket for the first 4 months.
Right.
So I make my money back after 8 years of holding that rental. And then I start putting this on a surplus. So my out of pocket suddenly it's been made up and now I'm on a surplus. So this is telling me in my first full year, which is somewhere in there. So it's year 13. So subtract 5,000 from that. I made $11,000 profit on cash flow. And I'm getting that now. I'm getting it now. I'm getting it currently, right? So I'm not waiting to collect that money. This cash flow, he's not getting. Those are unrealized gains. That's an unrealized cash flow. This is a realized cash flow, meaning you could buy your next property that much quicker. So if I go to 18, I'm making 2,000 by 18. That's per month. I'm making $2,000 per month on one property. Plus, remember over here, let's just say I stayed at my same salary, stayed at my same contributions. It's all hypothetical. We could change it, and the ratio will remain the same. But let's just say I'm also getting 1,091 into my bucket down here. So that's where the accumulated cash. So look at month 82. We haven't looked at this yet, but month 82 over here, month 82, I'm gonna deploy at month 82 the cash flow that I've accumulated again, accumulated cash. So I've accumulated enough cash to buy the next property now. And so right here, it's in month 82. So watch what happens if you just bought two in 82 months, and it accounts for it. The appreciation went up. Look, that means my down payment went up. That means my closing costs went up. I had to deploy another $60,000. And that's why it goes back to negative then. So suddenly it's negative in 18 years because why? Because I redeployed my funds and pushed them back out. However, timeout, wait a minute. I'm not even collecting rent on that though. So that didn't let me pull that down. So it's 497 plus that. Well, regardless, the point of this is not to show that piece of it, I suppose, but that's saying I'm not even collecting rent, but I would be getting I obviously would be getting around, I'm trying to do quick math, like 3,200. So, well, not that high. What am I doing? 2,700, somewhere around there. But
Yeah.
so that wasn't the point of what I want to show, but you could see quickly, it's insurmountable.
Yeah, the 401k is getting annihilated. I mean, you can continue this demonstration going into 10 properties if you want, but I mean, the truth is, after one property, you're crushing 401k. Two properties, like the 401k is just getting completely obliterated. Beyond that, it's just, why do people even invest in 401ks? I mean, I feel like this is just so crazy to even
and
really comprehend it.
Yeah, we're not trying to say don't do 401k is better than nothing.
Yeah.
People get, it's concerning. It's something they don't know. They get, cold feet. They're scared to deploy that money. They don't understand the financing of it. That's why there's a lot of stuff that we do in our coaching to get people comfortable to be able to do that, to deploy those funds, get rid of $30,000. This is a scenario of $200,000 though. You could buy these. I'm looking at a property now in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's $85,000. It's a $200. It's $85,000. It's a 2-bedroom condo, $85,000, and it will make me around $400 a month. So very similar.
That's crazy.
At half the scale. Yeah. It already went under contract though. I was trying to call Nick, my realtor, out there, and it already went under contract. I already saw that. But
now, for a second here too, Kajan, I'd like to talk about the idea of buying these like really cheap houses for less than $100,000. Do you feel like that's even worth it, or is there like a fixed cost of time and money? Is it better to buy 4 properties at $250,000 a piece rather than buying 10 at $100K a piece?
It depends, right? It depends on
where
it depends on the quality. It depends on if it's a class. Definitely not if it's like a class C. I'll say a class C property or below. So needs some reno. Is in a kind of a high crimey area. Not enough amenities surrounding it. So class B property or better, if you can find it in the right area, it works. A smaller property, and it also gets the buyer involved in real estate. They could go bigger on their next one. Get it sorted out, like get through that initial like growing pains on a smaller deal, because if it's smaller, you can miss bigger. On a smaller deal, you can miss things. You can miss more.
That's a great point, Casio. I think that is the value to these small properties, is people looking to get into Section 8, people who are really nervous about the risk profile. It's a good way to slowly acclimate to being a real estate investor and owning properties, and to learn the ropes of it.
Yeah, I find it's not even a measurable number in the difference between when you buy your first property. It may have taken you, let's just say it took you 42 years. I'm 42. Imagine if I hadn't bought, other than your primary residence, I'm not going to count that. I have plenty of friends that do not own a single rental property. And you think, all right, so it took you 42 years. If it was me, for example, it took me 42 years to buy my first investment property. I bet you it'll take you only 1 or 2 years to buy number 2.
Yeah.
So it took you 42 years to buy your first, but only 2 years to buy your second, because they're going to realize once they got in the game, 1, they might enjoy it, and 2, it's more lucrative than they ever would have thought. And if it takes them 5 years, I always say, I look back every property at year after I've owned it for, when I get into year 6 and I look back at that property and I see what appreciation's done and I see how my rent has gone up
Yeah.
every year about four, let's say in this example, it's like 4.5% that I was using on the other table. Well, it becomes a big difference, because what you don't think about when you're not in the game, when you're not doing this, when you're not investing in real estate, is because rent goes up, say 4%, your take home goes up significantly more. Your rent goes up 4%. That doesn't mean your take home goes up 4%. Because, and what do I mean by that? I mean, the other ancillary expenses associated with that property do not go up by 4%.
Right.
Insurance
Yeah,
doesn't.
that mortgage rate is fixed for 30 years in most cases, right? So that's incredible. And this 4% increase, that is for perpetuity generally. I mean, it's very rare for these rents to go back down. Knock on
Yeah.
wood here, but
Yeah, so that means it's going up 4%. And just same thing with appreciation. That's another beautiful thing to think about. When, so let's just hypothetically, I'm going a little off tangent, but it is about real estate. $100,000 property, you put, let's just say 20% down. So you put $20,000 down, but your appreciation, the property appreciation, let's for easy math, say 5%, right? So 5%. So 5% of 100,000 is $5,000. But what is 5% of what's 20,000 of what's 5,000 of 20,000, right? 25%. Your return on investment from appreciation is 25% of your initial capital in my example. Non-real estate investors absorb that. That's a significant number to think about. So
yeah,
you just made 25%, because I'll get people that say, how do I make like 30% in year 1? Right there.
yeah,
Right there. Because you just made 25% from that. Oh, by the way, you're going to, about principal pay down will be about another 4%. You're going to principal pay down about 4% of, so what I mean is, when you collect rent, you're collecting rent, you're also paying your mortgage down. You're going to pay your principal down. It's very slow in the beginning and accelerates. This is how amortization tables work. By year, you're 100% of it's going, or 98% of it's going toward your principal pay down. In the beginning, very small amount, but it's still going to amount to roughly 3.5%, 4%. So there's another 4%. So now we're at 29%. Well, what if your cash on cash was 10%? Well, so now we're at 39% on one property. You just made 39% return. But to a non-real estate investor, they don't see that, but you start to feel that after you've owned for like 5 years. Some people start to feel it after 1 or 2 years when they got into it. And now all of a sudden, that's what's going to accelerate them to buy their next property, because now they feel like, wow, I could do this. And I can see a real big return. Now, a lot of those returns that I was mentioning are unrealized returns, just like your 401k is. It's unrealized return. So it's an unrealized return, the appreciation, the principal pay down. You haven't exercised anything to realize those gains. The only realized return is the cash flow.
What I think is really interesting too, Cash Out. It seems like for most people, the biggest hurdle here is psychological, right? Going from having no investment properties to having investment properties. And then once you get up and going, once you get that inertia going, buying, 5 or 10 properties, it's not a big deal. You get these systems in place. And candidly, I mean, you've created these systems that you're sharing with people. So they can, what's taken you nearly 2 decades to learn, they can learn in a single week. So for people watching these videos, like, this is just a huge resource. I've recommended it to my friends, my family even, of what you're doing here, Cash.
Well, and the cool thing, Byron, is and you're always learning. Hopefully, you're just learning new tactics or something like that. It doesn't take a lot of effort, really, once you spend the time to understand the numbers and then get involved. I enjoy it. Like, I know I genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy I enjoy getting a house for somebody that needs a house, that is in a shelter, that is on the streets. Like, there's a lot of intrinsic value too that we don't even hit on, that is genuinely feels good, especially right now. It's like Christmas time. Like, I know that, I'm buying a unit. I know that she's super happy. This woman that I've already chatted with, vetted her out. She's in a shelter, and cannot wait to get into this. And if you buy in the right areas, you're proud of it, and you can, feel good about it. Like, there's no,
I didn't know that story, Cash On. This is crazy. So this lady is like literally in a shelter, and she's going from a shelter into your property. Like, that's huge. So you're making money, but you're really helping somebody out in a very significant way, and helping her out. And does she have kids too, or no?
Yeah, she does.
Okay, so think about the impact. I mean, this is a huge positive ripple, is that you're helping this family get a home. And that means these kids are going to have a stable place to live. And that's going to, in the next 10, 20 years, what you're doing today will have a huge positive impact on their lifestyle and their upbringing, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and you can't put that on a spreadsheet, and that's what I was meaning.
Yeah.
It just starts to feel good, like you get to know your tenants. Now, I'm a huge proponent of saying self-manage, but you don't have to self-manage these properties. You have enough in margin that you could hire a property manager to take away 18%. But there's data and statistics that show those landlords that effectively self-manage their properties have a significant longer tenancy than those that have a property management company.
And why is that? What's your theory on that? What's the reason?
Well, I have a couple theories on it. One is they don't have as much, a property management company likely doesn't have as much stake in the game. It's also,
Right.
they're more motivated for turnover. The way their fees are structured, typically
Yeah.
they gain bigger margins if you're turning it over every year. They don't want long-term leases. I love long-term leases.
Right.
Want that. They want an opportunity for that tenant to say, "Hey, what gives? I don't want to, I don't want to renew this lease." And then they have to upfit. There's an upfit fee. There's a vacancy fee. There's a move out fee,
Wow.
bid fee. These property management companies. But like I said, you have enough in margin. If you really want to be passive with this, you can still do that in an effective way as long as you're buying and you understand the why and the how and the where. The when to buy, back to that, movers moving
Yeah.
weight will not matter. The when doesn't matter. I'm buying right now. You could say I'm nuts. It's 7% interest rate. 2 years ago, you would have said you are what drug are you on getting a 7%
Yeah.
rate? Because 2 years ago I was buying and I got a 4.25 rate.
But I mean, 7% is not a big deal because sure, rates will come back down at some point in the future. And when rates go down, housing prices will go up because usually
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's the monthly payment that restricts people's buying activity, their ability. So that's
yeah,
great you're buying at 7%. That means that when rates go down to 3%, the property value is going to freaking double, right? Well, not exactly, but
yeah.
it'll go significantly.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
absolutely right. It's going to be interesting what happens in 2024 here, coming right around the corner when the Fed's
yeah.
3 or 4 rate cuts. And then there's some data that shows through 2025, we're looking at possibly 11 rate cuts that could impact, what's going on with supply and demand, right? The supply is
Yeah.
not that ample. There's people sitting, not selling, and there's buyers out there that are now deciding to rent because they're saying, hey, rent looks to be a more cost saving measure than buying. So
Right. I keep hearing that.
what's funny, why I'm kind of smiling about that is like that could be the case, right? In certain areas, that could be the case. But what happens to investors then during that period? That's the buy time. It's buy. It's time to buy when that's happening because they know
Yeah.
what's happening when that mindset keeps happening in renter mindset, saying, hey, it's cheaper to rent. Well, the more people that adopt that mindset, what happens? Oh, rents go up. That pushes the rents
Yeah.
up. When more and more people are renting, it's supply and demand again. If the demand keeps going up, oh, I want to rent, I want to rent, I want to rent, rents go higher. Rents go higher. So it's going to be a really cool. Like I want to see 2024. We're going to do another video on just
Yeah.
2024 because we would have lived through possibly 2, maybe 3 rate hikes with
Yeah.
renter mindset saying, hey, it's time to rent, and rates go down. Well, suddenly I think we're going to see rents start to really go up again, like
Yeah,
spiking.
I think 2024 is going to be a very interesting year for us for certain for rates and whole geopolitical environment right now. Now, jumping back to Kajal, a moment ago, you were talking about the idea of self-managing versus hiring property managers. Right now, you've got 10 properties. And for you, do you feel like there's a certain number where you say, okay, this is like full time, this is a lot of work, maybe I should have a property manager? Or did you feel that for people who are watching, who are listening, that maybe 5 properties is the number where it goes from being passive to very active? Like, at what
Good.
point do you kind of flip the switch there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say it depends on the property type, first of all.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm not a proponent of, meaning I don't like, is single family homes.
Right.
So single family homes, for several reasons. But I mean, let's just start on the outside, right? I've talked about this before, where there's driveways, sidewalks, there's grass, there's trees, there's exterior lights, there's doorbells, there's fences, there's siding, there's roofing,
Yeah.
there's gutters, there's spigots, there's foundation issues, there's crawl space issues, there's sewers, there's decks, there's patios,
You
there's
have this massive list of grievances here, Caggiano.
all right, and I haven't even gotten on the inside, right? So that was
Yeah.
the side of a single family home that I just don't like to have to deal with. And
Yeah.
what happens, condos and townhomes is what I typically target. And that really helps me not have to worry about all those things on the outside and perhaps even some things on the inside, because the average size condo you can look this up, is around 900 square feet. The average size single family home right now being sold is
Yeah.
2,100 square feet. So the less square footage, the less I need to worry about as an owner that could go
Yeah.
in that. And then there's also typically a lot of other ancillary items inside a single family home that typically condos and townhomes just don't have. Big cathedral ceilings, big hallways,
Yeah.
additional bathrooms. Additional bathrooms don't matter in Section 8, and they don't really oftentimes give you a bigger return, even in the fair market, even in private market rents. Just because but the difference between 2 and 4 bathrooms from a management perspective is mind numbing. It's so annoying.
Sure.
I have one property with 4. I did have one property with 4 bathrooms, and I'll tell you,
Yeah.
it felt like every couple of months one of those bathrooms had an issue. And I
Wow.
talk, you got to be a diplomat, so you need to understand: is it on them? Did they clog the toilet because of female hygiene issues, or
Yeah.
was it me because now I gotta replace the flapper in there, right? Like I
Yeah.
replaced the flappers and stuff like that. But going back to that question about property or self-managing property, having a property manager, with condos and townhomes, I find I've been around 7 and 8 properties for a few years, and I'm gonna get my 9th now, so I don't have 10 yet. I did have 11 at one point, but I've sold
That's what I was
3.
thinking of. I'm sorry. Yeah. You
Yeah,
used to have
yeah,
11.
and
Okay.
but I would say it depends on you as an individual, how organized you are, what procedures and practices you have in place that can make you a more systematic approach to every one of your units in the same fashion, in an effect,
Yeah.
in a polite fashion too, and forming a good rapport with those individuals, because you want them to like you, and just like they just want a safe home that is secure in a good environment. And if you could give that to them, they will stay loyal to you, because in Section 8, they have a golden key. And if they also meet you, so on top of the golden key, which is this voucher, and they meet you as a landlord, and they see that you're a good person and you're doing the right things, versus seeing a property management company, I just feel like
Yeah.
that little bit difference there reduces that turnover significantly. Like,
That's a great point. Just the personal side of it. If they're dealing with a management company, somebody who's paid to work 40 hours a week, they barely care. But in your case here, you care about your properties. They know they're talking to the owner. It's a big difference in communication. I'm
yeah,
curious too, Couch, going back to this, if you could look at the model here, I think for a lot of people owning 10 properties, maybe that sounds ambitious at first, but I think what is probably within sight for a lot of people is having maybe say like 5 properties. Can you just run through the model up to 5 properties and show us how long it takes me to get to there
yeah.
using your,
One thing I wanted to chat too about, Byron, but let me
yeah,
through that. But I wanted to show you something here, is a realistic scenario that I had for a conversation of a coworker talking about cashing out. So what I'm showing here,
okay,
cash out tab over here, this is showing something that is kind of exciting to see, where what would happen if you, well, this is funny too. I even took it further step. But what I talked to this coworker about was, imagine cashing out. Can you cash out? This is what I said to him, because it was funny. You could cash out. Say you're a 401k, you left your employer, and you say, "The heck with this, I'm just going to cash it out." Well,
yeah,
you understand there's a penalty, right? And like, I don't really even know the penalties, but yeah, we looked it up and we researched what the penalties are. So you're going to have to pay a penalty that amounts to 10% of whatever the value is. So you have
okay,
$5,000 in there. So you're going to have to
yeah,
pay a penalty of $7,500. You're also going to have to pay taxes on this, which is pretty scary. It's a big number. You're going to pay on measly $75,000. You're about to pay $21,563 in taxes alone.
that's crazy.
To get 75, you have 75 and you think you're going to get it. Well, no, you're going to get 45.
Wow,
You're going to get 45,938. Well,
wow,
what if you did this? So what if this works out really, really nice, actually, because rates sadly did go in a good way. I say sadly because I rate locked at the 6.99. Well,
okay,
I can now get 6.99 at 20% down. I actually looked this up.
oh, nice,
So I could get it at 20% down. So my other side, it showed 25. Well, you only need 20% now to get 6.99. So I could get this. So I plugged it in at my current deal. This is a realistic breakdown of what could happen.
yeah,
So if I wanted to cash out my
right,
70,000, it would have given me 45,938. Well, look at this number. Isn't this a beautiful thing? 45,937 is what I needed for my down payment
yeah,
in this scenario. because now keep in mind, I'm only that's accounting for the 20%. My other video over here, it was showing at 25%, but I'm doing real stuff. This is real time.
Yeah.
I can get 6.99. Well, it works out perfect. This example works out perfect. I mean, I purposely did 100,000, 75,000. So many people might have 75,000. There's listeners out there might have 75,000 in their 401k balance. But let's see a comparison then. Let's see, does it make sense to do? Am I being ridiculous? What is this guy talking about? 75,000. He's gonna pay all this money, and he's only gonna get 45,000. He has 75,000, but he's only gonna get 45. Well, look over here. It's a landslide. It's not even a close match. It is comical. Look what happens in 18 years. There's no wait here because I'm cashing out. So that's why this is zero. This can happen immediately. I cashed out, I bought it, I used it, I executed, I moved on. No more 401k though. That is now X'd out. That is zeroed out.
Now I'm looking at this number, Cashdown, of the total gain for both categories, the property versus the 401k. For people watching here, can you kind of define what you mean by total gain? Why those numbers are important?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so you can see here, out of pocket is positive, but it's not positive until you can go back over here. Look, so look at year one, you could see 41,000. Year zero. So what I'm showing here is year zero. That happens to be exactly what you're putting down. So you can see that's what. So this is going to be your out of pocket money in order to acquire this to pick this
right.
So in 10 years, it is a little bit positive. It's going to be, again, it's right around that 8-year, somewhere around 8 years, 7.5, 7.5. You're going to be somewhere around there. Maybe it's at 7 on this one because I did get 6.99 for less money. So, but anyway, point is and this is the fun thing about playing with these things. So you can see these numbers. These are real numbers.
Yeah.
Point is, you could see that at over here. Oh, did I mess that up? Hold on. There we go. 18 years, because I'm 42, back to that. I'm going to be looking at a out-of-pocket positive. I would have made back my money plus, and this accounts for depreciation. This accounts for the tax benefit of interest write-off. This number, this out-of-pocket, there's quite a bit going on. You can see in here, it's a pretty big formula. There's some stuff going on. We have tax brackets that things are feeding into. And we're paying taxes also on our cash flow. We're accounting for the tax consequences of having a positive cash flow as well. That was something that somebody talked about before.
I mean, this is massively complex behind the scenes here as far as the calculations that are happening. We talk about factoring different tax brackets and factoring in 401k penalties for early withdrawal. You've definitely put a lot of time to this, Cash. I hope people who are watching this appreciate just how complex this is, but your interface is so simple. So this is really just, giving them the cheat code to the money printer.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So you can see, so back to here. So the value at retirement. So that's the value of the property. Why is it 239? Well, it's 239 because there's a property appreciation of 3%, which is below the national average. But we're just going to call it 3%. Now, condos and townhomes don't appreciate as much as single family. So that is one thing I'll call out. However, what I'll also call out is think about what we're targeting. We're targeting properties that are starter homes. Starter homes are historically, look this up, historically appreciate much more than mid-size and high cap properties.
Really?
So, historically, that's a fact. Starter homes, and we're targeting, this might not quite be in the starter home price range, but it's pretty close. It's sub 250. Sub 250 homes are going to appreciate, and they're also not going to depreciate in the same rate either, which is interesting. So typically it's the more luxurious homes, it's the palatial homes that are going to be hurting a little bit in a slower market. I'll just say they decelerated their appreciation a little quicker. For instance, like my house where I live probably decelerated a little bit more than my rental units decelerated. And I say decelerated, meaning they still appreciated. They just didn't at 7%. They appreciated last year at maybe 4%.
Yeah.
But I'm putting in an average appreciation of 3%. That which you could argue that's kind of conservatively. However, historically, like I said, back to that point, condos and townhomes historically don't appreciate as much as a single family home. So anyway, so what this is, total gain, is you add out of pocket, which is a positive number, so it's not a negative. So it's actually adding this to get 403. This is showing you, obviously you cashed out. But what I wanted to say, what if you didn't cash out and you just stopped paying into it? So you're
Yeah.
no longer, you're out of pocket, you're no longer paying into, well, you would have had that money sitting there, and in 18 years, your balance of 75,000 would have grown, and you would have had a total gain of $147,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy cash out. I feel like this you're completely annihilating the 401k. And I think you're very clearly showing that withdrawing early and moving the money into a rental property absolutely makes sense, like in a massive way.
Yeah, I mean, in this example, I just used 18 because that's me. But look at this, real the real beauty of real estate is time, right?
Yeah,
They say it's not timing real estate, it's time in real estate. And that is
yeah,
that is no doubt. I seen it. The longer you stay in real estate, the bigger your gains. And I'm just showing here, look at this, the 844% property or a value gain.
that's
Uh
crazy.
yeah, on one property. One property. It
Can
is.
you run this model up to 5 properties just for people out there who are curious, who maybe they don't want to have a full 10 properties, they just want 5 as like a midpoint of ownership, if you don't mind?
Yeah, let me see in here, Byron. I might need to think it likes this when I was doing this. Let me just see something. Let me see. See if I can do that. Yeah, let me see something.
Okay.
And then, well, the reason being is I didn't put it in as a formula, that additional amount. Yeah, well, it seems a
You have to
little.
change law stuff now?
No, I don't actually. I'm going to go right on this one. I got a backup one. Let me go right.
Nice.
Yeah, purposely got that. Yeah, because what I was trying to do was put it in real numbers. So my
Okay.
numbers are a little bit different. Oh, well, hold on. Unfortunately, yeah, I can't do it on this one, but we've done it.
Okay.
The reason being is I hard coded certain things and
Okay.
overrode the formulas in order to put my realistic numbers in.
I mean, I guess the reality is that in the other video you and I did of 401k, viewers can look at the first 5 rows and determine how much they'd probably, make off those to be sufficient enough. So yeah, no pressure here. No problem,
Yeah,
Josh.
yeah,
Uh,
but it is comical to see once you buy 2 properties, even the numbers.
yeah.
Now, what I could do, and here, let me go back here. I could probably just put this was 498. See something. That was 498. I can just put in I could put in the numbers. Not even collecting rent, but then I'll put in the rent numbers after that.
Okay.
There's a little bit of, that'd be around 2,400. Then this one, that'll drop that number. Let's just put in 3 rough. Oh, that's
Yeah,
full.
3 properties is good too. I feel like that's still very manageable. It's not like that's not overwhelming. I feel like to a lot of people, 3 properties should definitely seem within grasp. 10, all right, maybe it sounds like a lot at first, but I think too that the people's mindsets probably shift over time, right? When you go from having no properties to having your first investment property, then getting 5 seems more reasonable. You have 5, getting 10 becomes more reasonable. And then for you, I mean, you're happy with where you're at. So that's great too to say, hey, I've got enough properties. I'm just focused on quality of life and family time now. So I admire what you've done.
Yeah, no, exactly, Byron. I actually see what happened there. So I'm just going to pull this formula back up here. And this should do the trick now to give me more exact numbers. Let me just see. There we go.
Okay, it's
Nice.
back.
It was actually off by $245. So I'm glad I did that because I did 24 trying to guesstimate by month.
Right.
So this is much more accurate now. But let's do the 5. Yeah, I realized because I overrode that one cell, and while I was doing the video, I accidentally had done that. And now we're looking at, let me put in the 5th one, in 132 months. In 132 months, you would have now bought your 5th property, while my example that we were talking about, Frank over here, is still saving $1,500.
Yeah.
Is it realistic that you could have done that? It absolutely is, because what this is doing, and I should highlight this column here. Let's not disregard what this column is telling us. This is actually
Yeah.
it's really handy. What this column is saying is it's saying I'm still collecting this in post-tax equivalent, and I'm putting it over here in my accumulated cash bucket.
Yeah.
And this is also accounting for any positive cash flow that's happening over here. taking that into account. So when you really look at the
Oh, we're losing our connection here, Cash. Did something happen?
math, are you good?
We're back. We're back, I think. Sorry, we lost
Okay.
connection for a second.
Yeah, no, it looks good on my side. But what I was going to say, Byron, is look here, 52 months it took me because I didn't have a positive cash flow property yet. But as soon as I
Yeah.
did, look what when I bought property number 2, it only took me 30 months. It only
Yeah.
took me 30 months. And then over here, now it only took me 22 months because I have these two cash engines working for me. This is doing that math. This column here is calculating that out. So if one were to say, you can't realistically do this, Mike, well, you can. These numbers, this is just math. This isn't me. I'm not hypothetically saying anything on this. This is just the math of what these numbers are saying. It's saying you
Yeah.
could same properties, 5.
Oh, our connection's skipping out again. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, sorry.
Yep. But ultimately, 5 properties elicits you 12,000. In 18 years, you're making 12,000 in the same number.
Cash, I think what's really encouraging here too is that for a lot of people out there, maybe they haven't bought a property and their retirement is pretty weak and they might be 50 years old, but very clearly your model demonstrates that for people who are say 50 or 55 years old, it's still not too late to have a beautiful retirement. I mean, if you're say 55 years old and you buy 3 properties pretty fast, I think that it's still be in great shape for a comfortable retirement. I think I lost you again, Cash.
You lost me.
Well, can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay.
Yep. Let's go back to really quick though, and to your point, what you just said. Say a 50-year-old buys a 4 unit though, like we started talking about.
Yeah.
The new rule, the 5% that was passed, that was a huge.
This is the debt service coverage ratio deals, owner occupied. So for people out there who are just learning about this, there's a new program that came out in November of 2023. It's called the debt service coverage ratio. You can buy an owner occupied property. You have to live in it for 1 year. It's 1 to 4 units. I believe in most areas you can easily get approved over $1 million in buying power. So just call your bank and ask them about the DSCR 5% down owner occupied program.
That's right. So Matt, let's do this. Owner occupied, 5% down deal, really quick. Realistically, I can do a quick search if you can, but we won't take up people's time. But listeners can look for a 4 unit. And let's just say hypothetically you found a 4 unit for $300,000. That sounds like that's a big number. Let's say
I think 300K for a 4 unit is probably unrealistic. Let's use DSCR numbers of 5% down and a property of $1 million. I feel like that's probably realistic.
I wouldn't say $1 million though, Matt. A 4 unit. I could get a 4 unit. Yeah, I could get a 4 unit for. Go ahead and look in Michigan. Go ahead and look in. I mean, I'm not going to say Detroit, but go ahead and look in Ohio. Go ahead.
A decent one, really? Okay.
Yeah, look in Cleveland, Ohio, right now. I mean, we could do a real time thing right now. We could edit this or however we need to, but it's in the essence of time. I'm saying. I know.
I'm sorry. In the essence of time, just go ahead with your assumptions. I think I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I wouldn't do $1 million though, because that's unrealistic. Because I'm looking for Class B properties, but I'm also looking for the 40th percentile of per unit that I want to rent this out based on a per unit cost basis. I'm looking for percentile of my Section 8 model. I also have a client that has done this. So he bought it. It was like $325. So purchase price. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to override all of this. $325.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, you're living in this. So, you're also going to get a lower rate, believe it or not, on these deals. But let's just say it's 7%. Let's keep it 6.99. Let's change this to 5. Your property tax is going to go up. Property tax is going to be a little higher. So let's call it double. An HOA likely doesn't exist in a multi-unit.
Right.
Your insurance will be higher. So let's just still go higher on that. Closing costs stay the same. Interest on cash is fine. But now over here, your rent is going to be, remember, it's a 4 unit. Let's assume that each one is 3 bedrooms. You're going to get around $1,500 per unit. But you're going to live in one of them. You're going to live in one. So you're going to get 0 and 1. So you're going to get what does that come to? $4,500 then. So you're going to get $4,500. And a 325 purchase price. Let's go up. I mean, because this is a landslide victory. Let's go higher then. Call it 400 then.
Dude, that's crazy.
Call it 400. I know I could find 400. I could probably find 400 in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But let's say you bought a $400,000 four unit,
Yeah.
and one of your units you're getting zero. The other three you're collecting $1,500 a month. So you're collecting $4,500 in rent. These are all your costs. Your down payment. This money is low because you're only needing 5% down. And look at that. That's one property. One
That's
property
incredible.
is equivalent to
Boom.
3 401ks.
That's like that.
3 times.
That's the code right there. It's like for people who have no retirement, just buy a 4-unit property, doing the DSCR program, and you're in great shape. Like it's as simple as that, right? You
It
know what,
really
Cash? I feel like this is so. I find this very interesting. I feel like it'd be really interesting to apply the DSCR program to Section 8 properties. Maybe we do that in a future video if you're up for it. And then use some real numbers from, LoopNet or Realtor.com, Zillow.com, get some real properties out there, maybe 3 different pockets of America. Because I think
Easy enough.
DSCR 4 units way to go.
Yeah, easy enough to do for sure. I mean, you could do a quick search right now and find a 4-unit. It wouldn't be hard. You can get under 400,000. It might not elicit the 1,500. So I think we're in a happy medium spot, just guesstimating, 400.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, you could put much.
Still crushing it, man. Still
Yeah,
crushing
it doesn't even. And I also increased the expense to rent ratio to 10% because a multi-unit is going to be a little more. Your expenses are going to go higher than a single family as well. But look, let's just say it's 600 then. Fine. So somebody's saying,
Yeah.
insane. Well, watch. I'm pretty confident 600 is still going to win. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it still wins. This is just getting funny. Like, I'm just wondering at what point, where does it not win? 7 million? Does it win? Does it lose? It has to lose here. Obviously, you're not making any money.
Technically, 7 million is beyond the DSCR program. I think it only goes to like 1.2, 1.5 million, depending on your location.
All right, let's do 800. 800,000.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just see. Okay. Finally, you're losing to 401k at 800,000 per unit.
But those rents are sub-market rents. Those are just unrealistic. If you're spending 800k on the property, your rents are going to be.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I think.
So 700. There you go. 700,000. You break even if it's only eliciting 1,500. If you spend 700,000 on a 4-unit, you're still just you're ahead. Actually, I would say still do it because look over here. There's more to just cash flow. We're only focused on cash flow. But what about out of pocket? Look at the out of pocket. You made your money
crazy.
Back. You're 236,000 in the hole on this side. So I mean, huge difference, right? Like right there. Yeah. So, and then in fact, that's in 18 years. But if you held it longer, I honestly think the gap's going to widen. Yeah. Look at that. Look at the gap widen.
Wow, that's huge.
Well, let's look at 31 because now I guess at 30 you've eliminated that mortgage. So 29,
right.
there should be a jump. Oh, whoops. Messing up here. 31. Yeah, it's a jump.
31 years. Yeah, that's very substantial.
So you don't even break even in 18 years on a 700,000 in that example. You're not breaking even. You're a little bit better. Let's say a little bit. Significant difference.
But this is really encouraging. I think people out there who are like, early 50s, maybe, late 50s, even saying, hey, I've got no retirement. What should I do? I feel like this provides some clarity in the fact that they should get rental properties. Maybe they get a DSCR 5% down, or maybe they go with Section 8, 20% down, but it's the way to go.
Let's use this example right here. You say you're going to retire in 5 years. You're 55 years old. You have a 401k, and you're like, how? What are we going to do here? Well, let's see how you could supplement your 401k, and that's doing a pretty good job right there. In 5 years.
Yeah. I mean,
in 5 years, look how much more, and that's just this one property, 400,000.
Yeah.
And you're going to live in one unit. And you're going to, So, I mean, pretty good. You haven't even made your money back yet in 5 years. It's such a short period, but you're still making 1,200. Your 401k, this is saying hypothetically, you just started your 401k at age 55, right? So you only contributed 5 years at that number. And then you acquired this. This is funny, right? In 30 months. So you're like less than 3 years away from retirement, and you're like, fuck the hell with it. I'm going to buy a unit.
But there's still hope.
This is all I'm going to get on my 401k. I'm gonna buy a 4 unit. I'm 3 years away from retirement. What am I gonna do? Oh, buy a 4 unit. I saw this video between with Matt and Byron and Mike. But in all honesty, it's comical. But look, I mean, he's making
It's
four
better.
times. He's gonna make 4 times the amount, and he
Caggiano, my batteries are dying on my machines here, but I do like what we're touching upon right here. I think this is actually a great idea for future videos. Let's discuss different age groups in life and possibly multis interlaced with Section 8. So maybe we can talk about that in future videos. But for people out there who want to reach you, what's the best way to reach you? And any closing thoughts you want to, any ideas you want to close on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Byron, I agree. Yeah, in the future, it's fun to look at this stuff. Obviously, I feel like we could do this for hours. That is the idea. But yeah, Section 8
Yeah.
Secrets. Check me out. The website's right above my head here talking. Feel free anytime, reach out. You could find contact information by going to the website and checking us out here. And yeah, we just enjoy, even if we're not making real money on Section 8 Secrets stuff, we enjoy real estate. We enjoy talking to people that also enjoy it. Like, it's just a fun environment. We have a good community that the people that are in our program, we're bouncing ideas off whenever we can, or they're emailing us directly too. And we don't mind chiming in and, helping people out.
Yeah. Caggiano, always a pleasure having you on the show. We'll have to do another video soon. I really appreciate your time today.
All right, Byron, sounds good.
All right. See you. Cheers.
Yeah, take care.
Cheers.